All right, so what we're going to do is essentially take a look at um, creating a little birthday cake setup or scene on this counter for our environment. Now, I do think there's a couple tools I'm going to be using in here. One is Pureref, so let's jump over to the web and take a look at this, where to get this program. So if you go to pureref.com downloads, you can see here that they have a download Pureref, and you can select the version you want to download, and then they have an amount you can select. So if you go to custom amount, and you could see that you can enter 0 and download it for free. If you have the financial wherewithal to buy it, I suggest you do. It's a really good program. Once you download it, you get and you run it. And I'm not going to necessarily go through the installation process. It's really easy. You just click next a bunch of times. But what you can do is a couple things. The first thing is you end up with something like this, where it's an empty Pureref just scene. And you can right click to move it around, you can zoom in and out, and this is essentially your canvas within Pureref. The way you can get your files inside of here is by just simply grabbing them and dropping them in. Now what you might have noticed if this is your first time running Pureref is your mode is not set to always on top. So when you go here to click on it, it gets a little frustrating. So what's nice about Pureref is you can right click, go to mode, and just do always on top. And you can drag these images next to each other and scale them up. And now when we go into programs like Maya, this will always be on top for modeling. What I tend to do is just make my Pureref scene pretty small. And the reason for that is because I can actually left click inside of here, pan around, and I could zoom this way. And I don't necessarily need it to be that huge. All right, let's jump back into Maya and start to set up our birthday cake scene. All right, so here's our scene. Let's kind of move this over here. And I'll go a little bit against what I said and just make this a little bit bigger. What I'd like to do is start to place a birthday cake in the center of this table. So I'm going to just simply gray box that out just like I've done before, and then save that off into its own folder called birthday cake on my scenes folder. So I'm just going to select this, make it live, go to create polygon primitive cube, and I'm going to drag out a fairly big size cake. So I'm going to try to contain all of my elements within this. Let's move this back just a little bit. Now let's go here and do a, let's uncheck this. I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to do freeze transformations. And I'm just going to do file, export selection. Now, you could see here that I have a folder inside of my cottage house scenes folder called birthday cake here. And this is where I'm going to save my birthday cake MA file. So let's do birthday cake. And then I'm going to go to MA. And remember, I did export selection, and all I had selected was that birthday cake, and I'm going to hit export selection. Now I'm going to delete this and go to File, Reference Editor, just like we did before, and I'm going to import in the birthday cake from that folder. And now you can see it's here. I'm going to minimize this, and in this folder here, I'm going to just open up this birthday cake so we can start modeling it. All right, so here's our model. What I'm going to do is the same as before. I'm just going to select and create a new layer and just call this ref. And go ahead and just pressing W on this, I'm going to hold shift and drag this up. This is going to serve as the base of my cake. And I'm going to make a new layer with that selected. And then let's see which one it created. So this is called ref. Save that off. Let's kind of move this out of the way. And then let's call this one cake. And then I'll save that. And this should be this. So let's go ahead and make this transparent. So I'm going to bring this down, and I'm just going to press 2 here. And that'll give us our nice subdivision, our kind of smoothed out cake. I'm going to go with something that's in between these two references. I don't necessarily I like the color of this, but I don't like how it's sort of a little bit more round. I like that. I would like this with rounded edges. So a real easy trick to this is under Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I'm just going to click up here and just drop just an edge loop around the top. And then to redo that, I can just press the G key or just leave it open, and then I can click on it that way. And there's essentially our cake. And then if I just hit Control S on this and we jump back into our other scene, let's make sure we close out all these extra references. And we just go to our reference editor. I remember in my other, let's go to our reference editor, and I had another tab that I made on a different computer, but for now, let's just do our reference editor and just refresh this. You can see it reloaded that in there, which is really nice. And for those of you who maybe need a quick refresher on how to create a tab with your name on it, I'm just going to go to New Shelf and then just call it to Margin and hit OK. And then add that reference editor. So File, Reference Editor, and then Control and Shift. And you can see there it is. Oops, maybe we want to do our reference editor. Oh, you know what? It's already open. Darn you, Pureref, for getting in my way. All right, so I'm happy. I'm a little happy with the scale. It's pretty massive, but we'll scale all of that down. I like to work a little bit bigger because I can always scale it down, and it helps me to see it a lot better. So let's just jump back to our other scene here, and let's take a look at creating this first character, our lion. Now we're going to, in order to create this character, which could seem fairly complicated and a little scary at first, we're really just going to be using a lot of the same techniques we've used in the past. So let's do that really quickly. So step one is just create a cube, and we want to do create polygon primitive, and we want to make sure that we have interactive creation on. So if we grab our cube from here, just another location. Oops. I'm going to hit escape. I seem to have forgotten one other step. Let's select this and make it live. There we go. So now we can actually drag our lion across the surface of our birthday cake. So I'm going to grab it here, bring it up this way, and then just press 2. Now you can see that right off the bat, if we're building out this lion's body, I'm going to go to vertex mode. You just got to make it a little bit bigger, squashed on the bottom. Let's go ahead and hit W. Grab these guys and just pull it down. Now we want to make sure that we turn off Make Live here, and then we kind of bring them down to the floor like that. So it looks pretty good. Now another thing is we would like to essentially, as we're modeling our character here, it would be nice to not have to constantly go up here to create the different elements. So what I'm going to do is just hold Shift, press R, scale this down, and just position this down here by the foot. Place it back here. And I'm going to hit E and just rotate that out. Hit W, right click, go to face mode, and just pull this out a little bit. Now you might say, well, that doesn't really look like this. And you would be right by saying that. But what we want to think about is, well, what did we do in this cake to give us more of this flat shape? Well, what we did is we went to Edit Mesh, or Mesh Tools rather, and we went to Insert Edge Loop Tool, and we added a cut, and that flattened out the top. So we can just sort of reuse that technique here. Boom, there we go. We've got that shape for that foot. Let's go to Object Mode. I'm going to hit R and just scale this down a little bit. And then just position it over here. Now, notice that the face normals, here, let's straighten these out a little bit, are they're facing this direction. But our cursor is according to the world origin being this. Well, a nice little trick is what we can do is we can hold W down and left click, and we can go from world to object. And now you can see it follows the faces. So if I go to object mode now, it also follows the faces there. Now, what I like to do too is create the arm here. So I'm just going to select that, hold Shift, right click, go to vertex mode, just hit R and kind of straighten these out a little bit. Same thing this way. And really we're just gray boxing out our lion. So up at the top, Edit Mesh. Let's see. Actually, let's hold Shift and right click and just go to Insert Edge Loop Tool. Kind of use a little bit of our hotkeys here. And actually, I think we don't even need that because it's hidden under his cowl. So I'm going to hit R here, scale this down, press W. position it this way. I'm going to go to vertex mode, bring this up here. All right, let's go ahead and create the cowl and then the face. So same thing as before, just select this body, hold shift. And what I might do is kind of just squish this a little bit like this and then go back to object mode, holding shift and duplicate that off so we have a copy of that because we're going to be using it a bunch. So in order to create the gray box version of this cowl is I'm just going to simply grab this and squish it down. And object mode, let's center our pivot because it looks like it got off a little bit. Squish it a little bit more. I'm going to move it down here. Hit E, rotate this down and forward so it covers that up. It's looking pretty good. I feel like this is too short. So I'm going to go to face mode here. Grab this face. Pull it up like that a little bit more. Then we'll grab this guy. And then what I'm going to do is shift right click and just kind of make this more cylindrical like that. And let's make it a bit thinner. And I'm really just going to model half of this and then looks pretty good. Let's move that down just a little bit and a little bit down here. Same thing with this. I think we can, I'm seeing a nice curvature there, so I'm going to just move that back and up. All right. Same thing as before, right? With this guy, what I can do is to create that is just hold shift, hit R. And then what I want to do actually is remove these edge loops now. So I'm going to right click, go to edge mode, double click this side edge, and then hit Control plus backspace. Now you can see I get that roundness there. Actually, let's turn this on and our shadow mode. I'm going to hold shift again, then hit R and make his muzzle. Holding shift, R, to scale down the eyeball. And let's do, I'm just going to grab this to make the ear. Like that. Alright, so let's do this. I'm going to take my pivot point. I'm going to press D here, and I'm just going to center it. So let's go ahead and turn on our sort of our wireframe there. And what I want to do is just go to Edit, Duplicate Special. There we go. So we want to duplicate this across our Z-axis. I'm going to press D again, just move it over here, hit D, and then apply. So there's our eyeballs. For the nose, I'm going to hold shift, scale this up, hit R, bring this down like this. This same thing with this guy here. Press D, just kind of move it off to the side to our pivot point, and then hit apply to mirror that across. With this guy, I'm going to hold W, go back to world, press D. Now remember, I was pressing and holding W and then left clicking to select world. Let's bring this over and then hit apply. We want to, I think we want to freeze transform on this guy and then hit apply. There we go. All right, I think that's good for now. For modeling our line, it needs a little bit of tweaking and we still need to make the cowl, but I think that's a good first step to starting to get all of our pieces in place.